And what I found in pricing counseling is I got the person to admit they have a problem.
Yeah.
And they're about to speak into the price. A minute ago, do we want them speaking to the price? No. But they were about to. So I can't do this. I'm going to say, no, I kind of need you to. Because a buyer, before they make an offer, they're going to make a decision. If there's two of them, they're going to probably speak into it together. So Corey, I'm going to ask you, go ahead and write down your price. By the way, you can have like a 5 or 10 grand swing in there. Or 25 grand if we're at $1 million or something like that. And then, so both of you, write down your number. Do you know the odds of me getting the same number as one of them? How high it is? If they have to write down their numbers, what we do, all three of us at one time turn our numbers over. They're dying to see what each other are said, which each other said.
We don't get to see each other's.
Not until you turn them over. It's a life-changing kind of listing presentation, the final 5 minutes. Get he and she both to write down their numbers. And what will happen is, when they turn them over, honey, what were you thinking? Just like counseling. When I did this the first time, I was shocked how well it went. Therapy was about these two talking. And what I discovered in the pricing therapy, I got to get them talking. Honey, we can't go there. That's too high. You know, well, I wasn't paying much attention. And the most amazing things will come out of their mouth when they turn it over and they look at, well, why are you thinking that high? This last one I was on, I don't do many in the field. It's 1.6 million. And he was at 1.7. We were at 1.5 plus. Let's go 1.6 and 1.7. And she turned to him, and he wears the pants. This was surprising. And there's no doubt in this relationship. And she said, you're too high. I want this over with. Because we were their third agent. She said, I want this over with. Listed for 1.6. And he wears the pants.
Yeah, but he wasn't cleaning it every day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this house was so clean that her daughter was laying on the kitchen floor, and she said, I mean, I wouldn't mind if my son rolled on the floor, but she said, we don't sit on the floor here. Honey, get off the floor. The child was playing, and I thought, but that's how meticulous this house was. I mean, it was incredible how meticulous it was.
Hey Brian, how do you do it mono on mono without coming across as like adversarial, or is there any thought process to that?
Repeat that?
Mono on mono. What if it's just a
Oh, two of us?
Yeah.
Oh, if there's just me and one other person, hey, thanks for coming, Jim. We'll talk to you later. He's got a closing or something. If we're one-on-one, it's really the same thing. I'm going to say, Rick, I want you to write down your number. I'm going to write down mine. I'm going to turn them over at the same time. This guy's dying to see my number. But there's no way I'm going to say mine until he's volunteered his. Yes?
Have you ever had where they had the same number and you had one higher?
Yes.
Or yours is higher?
Yeah, you turn red.
Okay.
And then you say, well, list it where you wanted to list it?
No, I don't remember. It didn't happen a lot. Because what happens is the final 5 minutes gives you another 10 minutes.
Right.
What happens is you guys are thinking, what? We just sat through this presentation, and I'm thinking 300, and you're still at 3 1/4, and you're at 340. Where were we all? So this gives me a second chance to go through the pricing. And here's what I'm going to share with them. All right, which is why you really don't have much problem when I show you this last part of it. They'll go with your price. All right, because here's what I'm going to recommend. We have 3 sets of prices on here. If there's an undersupply of properties in the marketplace, and let's say I got 400, about 380 and 365 up here. You're going, well, why do you have 3 numbers? Because I want to hit their target somewhere in that range. I'm going to show, I can pretty much guess what people are going to say on their price after sitting through the hour of presentation. I know where they're going to go. Because you'll see in the presentation, they're commenting on other properties that you're going to present to them, and they can't help themselves. They're going to comment on properties that you know are superior to theirs, and they're going to tear them down. If I show a seller a property for 4.25, and you're 400, and she goes, well, that house isn't as nice as ours, I'm thinking, oh crap, excuse me. They're thinking north of 4.25. So the goal is to get the seller to continually volunteer what their number is by showing them other properties that are superior to theirs. Failed listings are probably some of the best types of properties to show. You show another brand's failed listing, the house is 300 square foot bigger, it's got new carpets, new counters and all that, and it failed to sell for 380. But it's bigger than the subject. When you show the seller that property, and they go, well, that's not as nice as ours. And you're going to yourself, wait a minute, I just said it's bigger than yours with the finished lower level, with granite countertops, none of the things you have, and you think you're superior. Now, I don't say that out loud, but wasn't that a good thing to learn? Failed properties are probably some of the best comps to show. By the way, in Brian comps, we run every single status. Failed properties, closed properties, and when you can show failed listings that expired. Yeah. Canceled, withdrawn, expireds. In my category are failed. Okay? But they're fantastic to show a seller what you can't do. That's a good thing to remember. The listing presentation is really to show people what you can't do. It's not to show you what you are. It's to show the seller what you are not. It's one of those things. It's easier to find lead generators than it is to become one. It's also easier to show people what they are not than what they are at the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Show them what they're not. You'll find agreement with that. You show me what you are, we get disagreement, don't we? Right? So, anyways, the pricing summary, I got 365 on here, 380 and 400. I don't want 400. Why is it on my sheet? Because I'm going to show this. You can't read it from there, but this says undersupply of inventory. If we don't have an undersupply, we can't go here. But if there was a really, a balanced market, you could go there. Oh, Brian, okay. I can't go there because there's an oversupply of inventory. How do we know there's an oversupply? Because you ran a CMA report and you showed them there's 53 houses for sale in your area and 3 under contract. And then you ask the seller, is that an oversupply or a balance? If they say it, it's true. Okay? Just show a CMA report. It's part of the presentation. Just ask the question. There's 17 for sale to every 1 under contract. Is it an oversupply or undersupply? Is that moderate depreciation or significant depreciation? What would you say? If there's 50 for sale, the worst I saw was 53 for sale to every 1 under contract. Are we in significant depreciation or moderate? It's a free fall. We're losing money every single month. It's so easy to interpret the marketplace by looking at CMA reports, supply and demand. Okay? So we've got our prices on here. And again, I've got videos that kind of explain this without going into a lot of detail. But you get the idea, the power of having the seller present their number. Okay? Any comments on this? Questions about how to do it? Is this something you think you can use?
Yeah.
Got to role play it, right? So we're actually going to wrap up on talking about seller servicing. You took a listing, it's not selling. I think we had some people in the room that's the case. You took a listing. Anybody have inventory again? You know it'll never sell, but you possess it.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
Yeah. The goal here, this part called seller servicing. What do you speak about a seller every single week? What kind of communication? And then how do you get price reductions? I recommend that most price reductions are done face-to-face. That we do not try to get price reductions over the phone. Because you get bigger price reductions when you're face-to-face. You can skip weeks and months off your listing if you go face-to-face with people. But Brian, I'm so busy lead generating, serving myself.
And Brian,
No.
That's
Yeah.
so true, and I asked the seller to do that, and they just said, no, just fax it over and I'll just sign it. I didn't have to meet them.
Well, if you don't have to meet them,
But it was just the fact that I asked, let's get together and talk about this face to face, is 4
Right.
o'clock good for you? That she said, no, just email it to me and I'll sign it.
great.
Otherwise, it would have been that constant phone badgering for the price change.
Right. Yeah, we want to ask, can we come face to face with you? And at face to face, are we more influential face to face or on the phone?
More influential face to face.
Yeah. And if there's a husband and wife involved, when you're on the phone, are they both on the phone? Is that the decision maker on the phone tends to be the non-decision maker? Because when you take a listing, this one particular spouse is in charge of the appointments and everything like that, but you know what? That tends to not be the decision maker. So we're trying to do seller servicing, getting price reductions with people who we're talking the person with the lowest influence. We go back face to face with both of them. First of all, we showed up, which means we care. And we're so much more effective and persuasive when we're face to face with people. And I can tell you this, you will get larger price reductions if you go face to face. Karen?
How do you feel about people who take $5,000 price reductions instead of versus trying to get that larger 10 to 15,000? I mean, it's all relative with the price point of the home. But don't you think if you're going in for a price reduction, you should try to at least get a $10,000 price reduction?
Well, it depends on your price point, but I would say go in for what you need.
Okay.
If you're at $1 million, we don't want a $10,000 price
Right,
reduction.
Right. Okay.
And I would say if you need 100 grand, I'm going for the 100. I will equip the clients to make an informed decision. If we walk out of there with a 25 but we needed 100, and that would be the question I would have for Keith, is did you get what you wanted or get what the seller would bear for right now?
In that situation, I got what I wanted.
Okay? Yeah, and you can see listings in the MLS, and again, I've got reports on everybody in here, and I can see how quickly you take a listing and get a price reduction compared to what happens in the marketplace. It's amazing how long some agents wait. If you had no showings in 15 days, are you priced right? Do we need agents to walk through and give you feedback? Or do we know we're not priced right? Not marketing it.
Hey, Brian, should we look at the price reduction in terms of dollars or a percentage, or does it matter?
I'd say it's going to be percentages. You know, how much do you reduce a house that's at $1 million versus $300,000 versus $89,000? Somewhat relative. But I was working with an agent. She had a listing for $105,000, and I said to her in the city, I said to her, "What do you need it to be?" She said 70. I said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing with this listing?" "Well, he's a friend, and I took the listing," and I said all that. I said, "What's he going to pay you when we're done?" I said, "How's the relationship?" She said, "He's already mad at me." Because she took a part-time job that wouldn't pay. So it's fun, isn't it? Seller servicing. So there's 3 different things to talk about week to week with the homeowner. Some of it's just the weather. My brother, when I had my team, he was my seller servicer. I was out hunting, bringing in large accounts. And the good thing is Sean and I have about the same voice. And so many times you hang up the phone, they go, "Thanks, Brian." So it's like, whew. But I equipped him to have weekly communication with the client. And he was great about talking about Disney World, what's happening with this weekend with their kids. Because you know what? Some of these clients were not ready to reduce the price. I know this. In relationships, if you go for something when somebody's not ready, you get resistance,
Yeah.
right? And if we go for it with the seller when they're not in the ready mode, that's called you lose a listing, the next guy gets it, price it different, house sells. There are times we shouldn't go for price reductions, even if you need them, right? If you need them and you go for it, you know, what happens when you go for it when somebody's not ready? There's pushback. Again, that's how you lose that relationship. You're thinking, this is a listing, it's my friend, they're going to listen to me. No, you went for it when we weren't ready. It's incumbent upon you to move them to the ready mode. They will not do it on their own unless you equip them. How do you equip them? Storytelling, it's data, right? The things that we've talked about in the early part of today. The other thing is, Level 2 is what's going on in the marketplace. What we're looking for are price reductions and failed listings of other companies. Is it easy to find failed listings? They're happening all the time. So when you're on the phone with a seller and you're updating them about the marketplace, let them know it nicely. Hey, XYZ, good company down the street, that listing just came off the market. And why you want to say that? Because the seller is interviewing that company because they're not happy with you. So this was a way to make sure the seller knew that the other brand is not necessarily the answer. Because they start wondering, are you the wrong company? Do we need a new company? So what's going on in the marketplace serves a lot of purpose. And then pretty much ideas and discussions about resetting the price based on market feedback, market reaction. Really the system is we're always going for price reductions. I really think we should try to get at least 2 a month for each of our listings. Just keep going until you get it priced right. But how many sellers are really receptive to that fast to price reductions? No, we don't have to give it away. You know, we're in no hurry. You know what we paid for this property? Do you know what we have in it? Those are called emotional anchors. Once you hear those emotional anchors, you've kind of figured something out. And if you don't do something about those emotional anchors, you're probably taking a part-time job that will not pay. It's so important that you hear and listen closely. When I had surgery, and afterwards I really couldn't hear out of my right ear that well. And so out of this ear, they had the test where you kind of keep pressing the button down. You're in the soundproof room. You're pressing the button down every time you hear something. And then, the other ear, I thought she'd left the room and wasn't even there any longer because I lost some hearing. And if you think about salespeople, somehow if you had to press a button every single time your client gave you an indicator, I think we're not pressing it often enough. They give you, I won't give this thing away. They just made what's called they stated an objection, a declarative statement. They declared a position. I'm not going to give this thing away. What I want to ask, Paul, if you say that, I'm not going to give this thing away, I'm going to ask you to explain that. Because a lot of times when the client says, I'm not going to give it away, or we're in no hurry, can you kind of explain what that means? It's like, because it's always pricing therapy. But we got to listen really close and press that button. We hear somebody make a declarative statement that kind of gives you what I call their emotional anchor. All right? I mean, this is fun stuff. And again, as we were talking before about what do you say when you have nothing to say, go back to the common things that are going on in the marketplace. Talk about supply, demand. Just back off the pricing and get more into talking about the marketplace. And ideally, you're going face-to-face with a client at least once a month. Every one of your listings. Or don't bother going face-to-face and lose the listing. And you kind of sarcastic there, but neglect. I dated a girl once named Pandora, and Pandora worked for a dentist. And Pandora said, because I didn't floss my teeth like twice a day, and she worked for a dentist, and she said, ignore your teeth, they'll go away. Same with our clients. You ignore them, they'll go away, and then get hooked up with somebody else. So I'm going to skip a couple things here. Kind of covered this before, but it's really incumbent upon the listing agent to equip the client to overcome their ambivalence. This came right out of motivational interviewing, of people's desire not to drop their habits. That the counselor had to move the person who is ambivalent to be ready to change. And that's a lot of sellers or buyers that want to get a deal in the marketplace. People are just ambivalent to change. And we're trying to sell our services and just get the business. But what happens is we get it, doesn't go anywhere. Because lead conversion isn't done until it's under contract. So we talked about this going back face to face, and my challenge with you, if you have a listing right now that you don't think is going to sell in 30 days, can you go back face to face to those people in the next 2 weeks? So again, we asked before, do people in here have overpriced listings? We saw a lot of hands go up. My question, my challenge to you in the next 30 days, can you go face to face at least once with those people and get the price reduction that you want? Not that they're willing to do, $5,000 or whatever the case. We want to get the price reduction to what we want it to be. So can you do that? I mean, do you guys feel more equipped today that you're ready to go face to face? Because we talked about before this began. Can you go back face to face with both those sellers, if that's what you said? And you know, Bob's story is similar to a lot of people in here. They have listings that won't pay. And we need to get back face to face with them and ask for the reduction, do the R&R program. It takes some courage to do R&R, the reduce or release, doesn't it, to get rid of a listing? But is it doing them any good? Not doing the client, and is it doing us good? We shouldn't even ask that question. That's kind of like, did I just say that's doing me good, so I'm going to keep the listing? No, our fiduciary responsibility is to our client. So if we're overpriced and they won't change, and you don't have enough time to move them, I'd release them. And do what? Find another part-time job called a listing. Okay? So let me wrap up with our conversation we had earlier about the products. He's going to close us twice. and that is, you know, if you look at the money you spend right now, we talked about cable earlier, and you're looking at, you know, even just the Salesforce 5 program, you know, that's just $8 a day. If you're saying, but where are you going to find the money for that? I would just say change your cable. Change something that you have. And just, this is called a reallocation of funds, is what it is. And if you find value in what I had to say today. So I hope you did, and I appreciate, again, your feedback forms that you have. I want to thank everybody from our sponsors. And you want to see it again, we're doing it again on Friday if you need a recap on any of this. But any questions, I'm up here if you have any. Otherwise, thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it.